list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. It sucks.
The bonus.
Welcome back. It's another bonus episode.
It's another one.
I'm JB.
I'm Mike.
I don't know if we introduced ourselves in the last episode.
I don't know that we did.
No one probably fucking knew who we were.
Yeah, we just took
like,
that shit for granted.
These guys didn't say they were JB and Mike. Who are these imposters?
Who are these clowns? They're releasing everything 2 days late. We know that it's a falsehood.
They never do that, JB and Mike.
never.
Sorry.
Yeah. We'll digress. We'll digress back to the topic at hand. And the topic at hand is the Reddit snub list, which we've been going through as bonus episodes following the big list. And so this week we are taking on Elliott Smith's self-titled album from 1995. Most people, if you're familiar with this, or even if you're not familiar with this album, you could be familiar with at least one song on the album, and that's the very first track, Needle in the Hay.
That's what I was going to say.
So were you a big fan of the Royal Tenenbaums?
Yeah, fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a giant Wes Anderson fan in general. So
me too. And that's the most right, like the use of Needle in the Hay when she's committing suicide, when Gwyneth Paltrow's character is committing suicide in the bathtub. It's just it's perfect, right? Yep.
Kind of adds. I mean, this whole album is just kind of somber in nature. You know what I mean? A little bit, or maybe a lot bit,
or maybe a lot.
Definitely.
It's not bad in that respect, but
no. But it carries some heavy emotions with it.
Yeah, there's a ton of weight. There's a ton of weight in every. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a ton of weight in every song on this, and really every song on this record feels like a guy that you kind of know how the story is going to end.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's a crazy way to put it, but you're totally right. It's like it's just you can kind of see the way it's going. Smell the way
which is not good. I mean, it's not good, but it does create a really, really interesting backdrop to make beautiful music.
Do you get that with Nirvana?
You know, it's been a long time since I've sat down and just like critically tried to listen to Nirvana. So,
well, I think you're gonna get a chance sometime soon here. So,
I think so too. I don't know that I would say that all of Nirvana is laced with this level of foreboding.
Yeah.
Because this is dark.
It's very dark. But that being said, there's some really interesting songwriting going on here. All throughout.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the very first track. I mean, Needle in the Hay. The one thing that I noticed that he does in that song, and he does a lot. I mean, this is like indie folk music, but the level of harmonic dissonance that he's comfortable with throughout is above average, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, like he throws some serious dissonance in there, some weird tritone kind of clashing melody stuff that I feel like people shy away from in the genre a lot. People stick to, simple 1-4-5 and obviously slightly more complex, but just simple diatonic chord progressions with folk music for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 95%, and this is a little more interesting than that. He doesn't shy away from experimentation in terms of the chord progressions that he writes, and I think it pays off. A lot of chromatic melodies going on, and one thing that I noticed on this song and on the next song was that he changes keys a lot, and he's never like necessarily in a minor or major kind of key. He kind of modulates between the two, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean by that?
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Did you pick up? And I didn't, and I wouldn't have picked up on this unless I was reading, because I was kind of reading stuff as I was going through this, because a lot of critics have written about this album. Like, this album has just received a ton of attention, and rightfully so, partly because of who he is and just his story in general, but also because the music is really, I mean, it's really, really good. But one of the things that I was reading about that I didn't pick up on until I had listened to it for probably the second or the third time is the very last verse in the song. It ends with the consonant S
Which song?
in Needle in the Hay.
Yeah.
So the third verse, the very last word that he sings, it ends in an S, and he draws the S out to make it like a hissing sound, like a type of sound. And what I was reading was that he did that intentionally to make it sound, to basically make the same sound that it makes whenever you're cooking heroin in a spoon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like the sizzle. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That sizzle of when you're cooking up right before you go to the moon.
Wow.
Yeah. And again,
That's kind of foreboding.
it just like when you read stuff like that and then when you go back and you listen to it and you actually pick up on it and you think about it from that lens, it just becomes even weightier, right? Even heavier to listen to. And then you get that just through, I mean, Jesus, through every song, right? Coming Up Roses, which is like the 6th song on here. There's a line in there about, I mean, it's basically, you know, what I read was the whole title, Coming Up Roses, refers to when you're shooting heroin, like in order to make sure that you've actually got the needle in the vein, like you pull the plunger back a little bit and that plume of red indicates that your needle's in the right spot because you got the vein. And that's what the title of the song Coming Up Roses is referring to. It's it's referring to that blood plume inside of the vial.
I also read that like a lot of the drug references he claims are just purely metaphorical on this. You're not buying it?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying it really. Like you got St. Ides Heaven, which is a deeper cut in the album, which is clearly just a fucking throw out to being fucked up and partying like St.
I mean,
Ides.
he literally sings high on amphetamines multiple times.
I know, multiple times. The White Lady Loves You More. Again, on the back half of the album, like that's not even fucking thinly veiled, right?
No, that's pretty blatant.
It's not even a thinly veiled reference to How Much Heroin Loves You.
Yeah.
Some of the most powerful lyrics I thought on the entire album were on the last song, The Biggest Lie.
Yeah, very heartfelt, personal.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, you know, when you read about the rest of his life, like he didn't grow up in a happy home. Like his home was rife with abuse, like abusive stepfather that eventually he gets away from. But, you know, when you look at a background like what he went through, it's not difficult to understand why he's going to struggle with.
Yeah, his story is a sad one and one that did not end well, you know. And it's just kind of it's kind of a heartbreaking story when it starts that way, and you know, you hope it's going to do something different, but it ends up going the way that unfortunately you expect, you know.
Yeah.
But he made some beautiful art.
What did you think about his vocals?
I liked him a lot. And so that's something that immediately I remember, because I hated Belle and Sebastian. Okay. And when that came up, you mentioned Elliott Smith, and at least another person, maybe 2 other people mentioned, I think Lee Stamper of OnlyLee.com was one of them, mentioned Elliott Smith as like someone that people struggle with if they struggle with those type of vocals. But I didn't have that experience at all here. I loved his voice way more. I thought it was fantastic.
Was he singing?
Yeah. But he's also kind of, I don't know.
He's also kind of whispering to you, right?
Because he has a whispery tonality to his voice for sure. It's almost like he's kind of passing along like a little secret or something, you know?
Yes. And actually I never thought about it that way, but that might be the best description of the way that he sings.
He's like disclosing some part of himself that he can't do in words, but he can do in music.
Yeah. And he doesn't want to be super overt about it, right?
No.
This is not something where he's like, hey, everybody. Hey, I've got something to tell you. Like, that is not his style, right? His style is very much on the side of where somebody else is doing that. He's kind of pulling you off to the side, and he's just kind of whispering, hey.
Yeah.
You know,
I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
but I also loved that because I thought that it added the lack of like a big voice and like really confident, actually like any level of confidence, right? Any level of confidence in his voice. Cause I wouldn't say that.
Would you almost say it's insecure at times?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
But-
elements of that.
But the lack of weight in the vocal delivery is what gives the emotional weight to what he's saying in the song and the way that it works with his style of guitar playing.
Yeah, it's almost like by saying it quietly, his message comes through clearer.
And even more pronounced than what he would have done if he was utilizing some big, confident vocal mechanism.
Definitely. Would you, let me ask you this before I dive into my opinion. Would you just call this like indie folk? Do you think this is folk music?
I'd probably call it indie before I called it folk.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's not using the same musical tropes that folk music
that folk does it
uses.
all. That's what I was talking about in terms of the songwriting, but it almost is more alt rocky to me at times, but it's like just the instrumentation that he chose. I feel like he gets pigeonholed as a folk singer because of the instrumentation, because it's largely just acoustic guitar.
Yep.
Maybe 2 tracks of acoustic guitars, multi-tracked vocals a lot of the time. And other than that, the instrumentation is few and far between. There's occasionally an electric guitar. There's an air organ, whatever the fuck that is, on Coming Up Roses. I don't know what that is, honestly, but that's there. And I was like trying to figure out what that was. And I Googled it and I was like, that's an air organ. Don't know what that is still. But do you know what that is?
I have no clue.
Yeah. But
I have no clue what the fucking air organ is.
but yeah, it's almost like alt rocky to me. It kind of reminded me of some other like 90s alt rock stuff. But I thought it was he had really interesting way of writing songs here. Like I said, I think that he doesn't shy away from dissonance. He's almost always not playing in one key. He's mixing it up. He's changing keys. He's switching between minor and major keys. Nothing is like doctored up here. You know, there's no real production. It's just his voice with guitars, acoustic guitars mostly. And
I'm pretty sure this entire album was recorded at a friend's house.
Yes, or 2 different friends' house actually.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, because you can look it up on Wikipedia, and it's like, recorded at this person's house, and then the other half recorded at this person's house.
Yeah.
And the one guy that he recorded at his house was a guy that he played in a band with for a while before he kind of went solo.
Okay.
But like I said, nothing's doctored up here. There's no production. It's just him and guitar. Any other layer feels very intentionally placed. So there's one song with harmonica on here.
I was just getting ready to go there with you.
And it doesn't feel unnecessary to me at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck
it
off.
honestly feels like
Are you kidding me?
No, it feels like a central piece of what's going on. Did you think it was unnecessary?
I'm going to read you what I wrote.
Uh-oh.
Great guitar again. And that's one thing that really stood out to me is like, I actually thought that a lot of his guitar playing was really beautiful. It wasn't complex.
Yeah.
It wasn't technical. Like there's no virtuosity here.
No.
But the combination of that guitar work with that kind of whispery, hey, I've got something that I want to tell you, and I'm not really proud of what I'm getting ready to tell you type of delivery. I loved it. I loved it in every way. But I wrote, great guitar again. Okay. This harmonica is totally unnecessary.
Oh, wow.
I see that here, assuming this is another song about heroin use, pretty vocal layers near the end.
Just for some reason, like on that track, which is St. Ides Heaven, is that what you're talking about?
No, Alphabet Town.
Sorry, yes, that's what I meant. Yep, Alphabet Town.
Yeah.
It didn't, a lot of times when I'm talking unnecessary harmonica, it just feels like a layer that's slapped on like as an afterthought, which I feel like is 90% of harmonica. But occasionally it's a central aspect, and I feel like it kind of was on that one. It was kind of playing the melody. But
listen, it's
in my
fair.
which is weird that the one time that I
know the one time that you actually didn't think that it was unnecessary, I listened to it and I like you fucked up my taste is what's happened.
I'm sorry.
I've heard you browbeat harmonicas enough that when I heard it on this track, I really just, for me, I listened to it and it was fine. But at the same time, if you would have deleted that harmonica, I felt like it probably would have been a more enjoyable song for me.
Or exactly the same, you know what I mean? But like more enjoyable. That's the thing. I feel like a lot of the times you take the harmonica, the song's the exact same.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same, you know, or better, you know, but certainly not worse, you know, for the lack of harmonica. The only time I would maybe say that's not the case, obviously, is with Howlin' Wolf, you know, something like that.
Yeah,
you
something
know,
like that. No, I get you. The fourth track, Southern Belle. That song is just. That song is. It is crazy what he's describing in that song. I read that song lyrically as a song basically about his mother and the abuse that his mother had to suffer at the hands of an abusive stepfather, which again, that's something that if you dig into anything about Elliott Smith's life, like you uncover that relatively quickly and lyrically. I mean, Jesus, that song is wild.
it is. Musically, it was almost like Celtic at times in style, like kind of a bluegrassy rhythm, but almost like, maybe I'm crazy for saying that, but almost Celtic.
I don't think you're crazy. I heard that.
But it's just sad, kind of sad overall. I mean, like, just it speaks to what you were saying, but definitely.
And that's where this whole album lies. I mean, this whole album is watching, I don't know. It's watching a story that, and we've already said this, it's watching a story that you kind of get a feel that you know how it's going to end and you don't really want to read the ending.
Yeah. And his story is definitely a sad one. Like we were talking about this a little bit before, but the way that he died it's kind of up in the air in terms of whether it's suicide or not.
Yeah, technically it's still considered an unsolved. It's technically considered an unsolved murder. It happened in LA. He ended up stabbing himself in the chest while his girlfriend was showering in the bathroom. And I mean, a little bit of bizarre circumstances because the LA County coroner said that, you know, most of the time when people commit suicide like that, you can see hesitation wounds where people start to think twice about it. But there was nothing like that with Elliott Smith. I mean, you know, according to the story, he basically stabbed himself in the chest
2 times
with a knife.
And his girlfriend came out of the shower and he basically died kind of on the spot, or at least was unresponsive. So he couldn't explain what happened. But there's a lot of iffiness there because, like you said, the hesitation wounds, and he had apparently been talking about doing a new record with one of his people he was working with, and he seemed very, very excited about it. So it just seemed kind of out of character at the time because the other thing is at the time he was like cleaning up his act a little bit. And he cut himself loose of drugs and alcohol cold turkey, which maybe contributed to it.
That's what I was just going to say. That in and of itself could have been part of the problem, not part of the help at this point. But
because at some point when you're that deep in it, cutting all ties can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
But that being said, there is speculation there. Like, was he murdered?
Yep.
Nobody knows. I don't know if we'll ever know.
This was already part of my digital catalog. I didn't have to add this.
I added it.
I will. I don't know that I'll ever be able to find the vinyl in this, but if I ever found it, I'd buy it.
I would buy it absolutely as well.
It's a fantastic record. What do you think about the list?
So my answer there is this was my first foray into Elliott Smith. Okay, like period. And I'm happy with what I found here. And I think that this guy is really, really, really great, and he deserves to be represented. But I don't know enough about him yet to say if this is the one that belongs on the list or not.
That's fair. And, you know, the way that the Reddit snub, the way that this list on Reddit was put together is that it was put together as they only did a handful of albums that they called out singularly, right? Most of the things that they put on here were all albums by. And this is another one they did all albums by Elliott Smith. And so, you know, he doesn't have a super deep catalog. I think there's only maybe 2 other records, maybe 3, because one was released posthumously.
I think there's 3. But the way that I took the wording on those is that the ones that are called out specifically, I think those artists have other records on the list.
Oh, sure, yeah, because Frank Zappa, there's no fucking way.
There's no way.
Yeah, there's no way that not a single Frank Zappa album has made the list.
So I think any of those, maybe not all of them, but I think because that's the one thing is like they call out In the Court of the Crimson King specifically, but I don't know which other one would be on there if that one's not.
And that's what I'm thinking. And
maybe Lark Tongues and Aspic, but I don't know. Like,
yeah, but clearly Pink Floyd is going to have albums represented on this list. Dark Side of the Moon has to be on here. The Wall has to be on here.
So I think most of those ones that are called out
on here.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think most of those ones that are called out specifically, the artist has other records on the list, and they're claiming it's a snub that particular album wasn't on there, but then these other artists didn't have any representation.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll dig deeper into Elliott Smith and then maybe revisit.
Yeah, Elliott Smith's one that we could potentially do all of his records.
And then make a call at the end of the day about whether...
Is there one you are more familiar with or one that you like better than this?
This is the one that I'm most familiar with. And even this album, I wasn't intimately familiar with every single one of the tracks. This is one that I listened to. I probably listened to the first half of the album quite a few times and then never really dug through the rest of it. So I'll be curious to dig into the other albums that he has and then maybe revisit, list or no list.
Gotcha.
Once we get to that point.
Yeah.
But it's a great album.
It's a great album. It's worth a listen. It's a short one.
Yeah.
Spin it.
Yeah, it's only a little over a half hour. I mean, if you're only going to listen to one song, just listen to Needle in the Hay, because that'll give you a really good feel for what this whole album holds for you, in my mind.
Listen to Needle in the Hay. I also really loved Alphabet Town.
Yeah.
So I'd say put that one on.
Yep.
Which is the one with the harmonica.
I mean, I started every single album on this record, so I wouldn't tell you not. I think you could listen to any single one of these because, like I said, I started the whole thing, but I did give Needle in the Hay like 4 stars, and everything else I gave like 1 or 2. So that's kind of where I stand on it.
But yeah, I agree that listening to like any of these, you're going to kind of get the Elliott Smith picture.
Yeah, you'll get a feel for what he's doing. So should we preview what we're going to do next? Yeah.
What are we going to do next?
So next week, we're going to kind of jump around a little bit because we have some guest hosts that are going to be doing bonus episodes that we want to make sure that we're giving them stuff that we think that they would work really well with. And so next week, we're going to jump all the way to the end of the Reddit sub list, which is going to be the album Animals by Pink Floyd. Which is crazy to me that album is not on the list. I love it. I already own it on vinyl. I've listened to it a lot of times. So it'll be fun to talk about that one in more detail.
Undoubtedly a snub.
Yeah.
Already I can say.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a good week, everyone.
You betcha.
Yeah. As always, this list fucking sucks.
It does suck.
This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. It sucks.
See you next week.